Well, let's get some more analysis, and we can speak now to Khaled Elgindy, who is the director of the Palestine and Palestinian Israeli Affairs program at the Middle East Institute. Thank you for joining us. You're also the author of Blind Spot, America and the Palestinians from Balfour to Trump. Thank you for joining us. We're about 10 weeks into this war in Gaza. Do you see any approaching of what you might call an end game there?
Not as far as I can tell. I mean, the Israelis are still talking about they need several more weeks, if not months. I think the Biden administration has a shorter timetable in mind, but nobody really knows how long this will continue. I think it will continue to see the same type of same level of death and destruction that we've seen over the last 10 weeks until there is a much more forceful message from the United States and other Western powers, but particularly the Biden administration, that continuing along these lines is simply not acceptable. But they haven't reached that stage yet.
Yeah, I mean, we keep hearing from analysts and we keep reading reports that have, you read through between the lines and you get the impression that Washington is starting to really lose patience with Israel. I mean, are you getting that impression, and could that translate into a different course of action, perhaps at the Security Council?
It's possible. We'll know, I suppose, in a few more hours if there is, in fact, a vote in the Security Council. What we've seen so far is, as far as the private messages, there is a much more forceful message being conveyed. We're told from the administration that Israel needs to do more to prevent civilian casualties, that much more needs to be done as far as humanitarian assistance. But the public-facing message has been fairly consistent, and that is what we just heard the quote from Lloyd Austin, which is that the United States stands with Israel unquestioningly, and that we support them. And the fact that there is concern being expressed privately about the civilian destruction is not being received in the way I think the administration had hoped. The Israeli side has acknowledged receiving those messages, but we're not really seeing any shift in Israel's behavior on the ground. And in particular, I think all of this was predictable. Many of us had, in fact, predicted the sort of humanitarian catastrophe that we're witnessing, because Israel made a decision on October 9th to cut all food, water, medicine, and fuel to the entire population of 2.3 million people in Gaza. So the notion that, that's clearly not a targeted policy that is aimed at the entire population. And we now have this Human Rights Watch report that says quite clearly that Israel is, in fact, using starvation as a weapon of war. So we've known this from the beginning. And so the expectation that Israel would try to limit damage to civilians, when we know as a matter of policy that they are using food and medicine and the lack of those things to harm the civilian population, there seems to be a disconnect there. And it's probably not realistic to expect Israel to change its approach.
I mean, just looking at you paint the picture of the humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza, and it's being seen by people all over the world on television screens, on social media, and it's being seen in particular in countries, well, particularly in the Arab world. But I'm interested to focus for a moment on Israel's newer allies, because it's got these newish allies, not the historic allies like the United States, but allies of just a few years, like the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, possibly Saudi Arabia, though that's not quite formalized yet. How are they contributing? What's their voice in this? And do you get the impression that those quite new relationships could actually be under so much strain that they might actually crack and be cut off?
Well, I think the relationships are under strain with the entire Arab world, including not just the new countries that have normalized, like the United Arab Emirates, but also much older countries that have relationships with Israel going back many decades, like Jordan and Egypt. There's definitely the potential for a rupture of relations across the board, and there is a general unified Arab stance that there needs to be a ceasefire. It needs to be immediate. I think it's not. I think it's telling that the United Arab Emirates is pushing forward another resolution in the Security Council as the representative of the Arab bloc. The fact that it's coming from the UAE is significant because of this new relationship that, unlike other relationships that Israel has had with Arab states, was quite warm. But the mood right now across the Arab world is one of anger and outrage, and that's directed not only at Israel but also at the United States as Israel's chief supporter, particularly. I mean, it's the United States that has consistently blocked attempts to reach a ceasefire at the Security Council.
Okay, well, we're going to have to leave it there. I'm told we're out of time, but thank you very much indeed for taking the time to speak to us. Khaled Elgindy, Director of the Palestine and Palestinian Israeli Affairs Program at the Middle East Institute. Thank you so much.